Hey, do you guys remember when I used to look like Shrek? No, me neither. That's interesting, isn't it? So this is an intro to a video. That's about it. Make sure to subscribe. Goodbye and hello, actually. And thank you. Now, I've always been interested in building in Minecraft. It's the main reason I play the game. And I always thought I was a pretty good builder, but recently I feel like I've been trying really hard to improve my building skills. If you compare my recent survival series such as Minecraft Goals and X Life, and the areas I've built there in comparison to old series such as One Life, Funcraft, etc., then I feel like you can see a big difference in how the builds look. I hope you can at least, because if not, then this whole video is pointless. Basically, I've been working hard trying to improve how my builds look. So I thought I would tell you what I've learned and what I've done to improve my building style, and maybe you can learn something new. Which in fact brings us perfectly on to tip number 1. Inspiration from YouTubers. Now in the past, I would look at pictures of Minecraft builds and like Google search, etc. and get some inspiration, but I feel like the best way to learn how to build better is to watch some other YouTubers who build really well. Some of my favourite to watch, which I think most people know, are Grian, Good Times with Scar, BWO, and some other members of the Hermitcraft server. But I would also recommend watching Thwip's videos, plus Pearlescent Moon, who is one of my favourite builders in Minecraft. I've learnt a lot from watching these guys in the past few months, and you can too, so you should definitely go check them out. But after you've finished watching this video, right? Tip number 2, choose your location wisely. Now, people always seem to opt to building in a plains biome, mainly because it's easy. Look at all this flat space that's around. Although this is not probably the best example. Like I was saying, don't always build in a plains biome. It's nice and flat, it's easy, but it's also just kind of boring. I'm not saying you shouldn't build in a plains biome. I'm just saying if you always build in a plains biome, maybe expand your horizons a little bit. So I just found this acacia sort of like hill here, you could say, and it doesn't look like the best place to build, really, does it? But it's a challenge. What could we build here? It's limited our space. I feel like we could work with this and plan something out to be built on here, which brings me to tip number 3. Planning is key. Now this mainly applies to people building in survival mode, because if you're building in creative, you could just knock it down and start again with not too much problem. However, if you're building in survival, having a separate creative world is a lifesaver. Everything that I've built in my Minecraft Goals series or my X Life series has been planned out before in a creative flat world. So what I'll do normally is I'll make a note of how much space I have and then head over to a creative world, which, to be honest, looks like a bit of a mess because of the amount of stuff I've built here. And it's very much a test world. Normally, I won't build the full thing. I'll just build a little bit of it. As you can see here, this is the barn from one of my recent Minecraft Goals videos. You got the start of my main base here, which you can see I'll put a little comparison on. Even down to littler things like the beehive or the tree that I built. Same with the X Life builds. You've got Lizzie's windmill, kelp farm. Everything you've ever seen on X Life is here in this world. The main reason for this is you can just play around, change things, which is a lot easier to do in creative mode than it is survival. Tip number 4 is a simple one. There are lots of blocks. Use them. That sounds pretty stupid. Let me go into a bit more detail. Basically, when I was building at first, I would always stick to using very similar blocks. Mainly spruce wood, oak wood, maybe stone bricks, and that's about it. Whereas nowadays, I tend to try and use as many different types of blocks as I possibly can. Minecraft keep adding all these wonderful blocks, so we may as well use them, right? Apart from maybe diorite, because we want to keep a certain YouTuber happy. But even diorite can look good. And we can very smoothly transition on to tip number 5, which is don't just use one block. If you're building something, don't just use one block. Instead, maybe have a colour palette and just think of the blocks as colours. For example, grey has lots of different options here. Now this is way too many. Normally you want to stick to just like 3 of these, and some of them don't really fit too well, like just regular old clay there. But say you want to build just a regular stone wall like so. In the past, I'd have just left it as this. But I've learnt that if you use a mix of blocks, it can make things look so much better. Let me grab my favorite combination here, which is andesite, cobblestone, and regular old stone. And you can just randomly place these around. And just like that, it adds a bit of texture to the wall. It makes it look so much better. But make sure you don't go overboard with this. If you add too many blocks in, it turns into a bit of a mess. and doesn't look too good. So before you build something, choose the colours you want to use in the build. I like to separate them down into the walls, the roof, and the floor. Tip number 6, terraform the area around you. But what does that mean, Joel? What is terraforming? Well, it's basically just changing the scenery and forming it to make it look how you want it to look. Because let's be real, Minecraft generated scenery isn't the best, and that's probably because it's randomly generated. So we can transform a mountain like this very simply and make it kind of look more natural. Let's give it a quick go, shall we? So I start off by separating this into 2 separate platforms, and instead of having all that dirt there, we add in a bit of stone, cobblestone, and mossy cobblestone, as I just think those 3 work really well together. Another cool thing to add are hanging leaves, which make some really cool looking vines, plus lots of flowers, some rocks, etc. And here you can see the difference it makes. This is something I've been trying to get better at recently, and I think I've done a pretty good job here. I don't think it's perfect, but I'm really working on making it look better. We've used some like little buttons as stones. The leaves hanging down, I've actually used a mix of leaves as well. There's acacia, oak, jungle in here. Just looks really cool on the bushes as well. Put a little pathway up here, although I'm not sure if it'd have any use, just for like decoration, you know. Sometimes you just build for decoration. And when I used to do this, I used to basically just build all the stone up to just the top layer being grass, but now I've been working on adding more dirt in, more grass, etc. As you can see, having this little bit of overhang. I think that looks really cool. And I have a few more things that I want to mention, but first we kind of need to start building a house. So we're going to build something on the top of this here. Let's see if we can make something cool by following my tips so far. Now I'm going to try some colours that I've not used before together, so this may or may not work. But let's make a little colour palette over here. Starting with the walls of our bottom floor, we're going to use these blocks here. And for our top floor, we're going to try something a bit different. Diorite, quartz, and wool. This could look great, it could look hideous. For the roof, some dark prismarine and some cyan terracotta. And then we're also going to use some dark oak wood. Alright, let's start building this thing up. So the dark oak is like our main accent block. We're going to use that for pillars, etc. And yes, by the way, I did cheat and use stone and then just replace it with World Edit. It's just quicker, okay? I'm lazy. And here you can see I'm adding some detail on, which I wouldn't normally do in this order. And that's normally because I will build the full shape first and then detail it afterwards, but I wanted to give you my next tip, which is use everything you can to detail. So my favorite things to use for when you have pillars are these trapdoors like so. They kind of make the pillars just stand out a little bit more. Windowsills, we can have stairs and slabs, stairs, grass, and some trapdoors, or even just some stairs. I've gone for quite a heavy dark oak theme right here. Obviously, you could use whatever you prefer. I've also used some gates up here to make a little top effect along the roof, because otherwise you have a lot of empty space. And speaking of empty space, don't be afraid to leave some. You don't have to have loads of windows. A big mistake lots of people make is just to have windows everywhere like this. Lots and lots of glass. And yeah, it's good for getting light in, but to be honest, it doesn't look too good. But you're probably thinking, Joel, what would I put there instead of windows? Here's a few examples of things you can put. A little stack of barrels, maybe some hay bales, some pumpkins and melons. Or if you're going a bit more naturey, some rocks and some leaves, etc. I'm pretty happy with how this bottom layer is coming along. Obviously, we still need to put in a little entrance area, maybe decorate it a bit around the house as well. But let's move on to our next layer. We're going to do all that stuff as a little touch up afterwards. Time for another cheeky time lapse. So I actually brought the top layer out a bit. And speaking of the tips from earlier, I was very much inspired from watching B-double-O's videos. He makes houses in quite a similar style to this, although a lot better than me. And one thing I've really tried to improve on recently is just adding different things on. Not just loads of windows, lots of fun, interesting stuff. So here are a few of those features I added on this house, as every side looks completely different. On the front here, we've got this nice pattern with these spruce slabs. Might actually change this one because there's a bit too many slabs. There's some grass and trapdoors. Here we've got a little bit sticking out, which I think will look nice once we add on the rest of the roof. This one looks very similar to the other side, except we've got a square window because this one's too wide. On this side, we've got a couple of standard windows, but here we've got a little balcony, which comes out very nicely and goes all the way down to the floor as well. Just a nice little addition. And on this side, we've got no windows. We've just got this fun little pattern here. As often in houses, you need walls which you can just place stuff on, like chests, etc., so you don't want windows. Another thing to mention is I've got this nice overhang here. You can sort of like have a little fun area out here, which we'll do right at the end. But obviously at the moment, it's looking pretty ugly, you can see. So I think we need to fix that by adding the roof. This should hopefully be a game changer. Back to the time lapse. Now, normally I like to try and use stairs for the roofs of the builds I make, but this time we're doing something different like I said earlier. So we used some cyan terracotta blocks, although we did use some stairs on the outside to sort of accent the roof a little bit. We also used some stone bricks as little bits of details, because otherwise one big block colour can look pretty weird. Now, often what I struggle with roofs is that they just look all very similar, very blocky. So that's why I've added little things in like the stone bricks with the stone brick stairs as well. That one's upside down, but there you go. I also added in the dark prismarine going over the top here because it kind of splits it up a little bit. See it on this side as well. Just makes it look a bit nicer. And this still isn't perfect at the back here. I still think it looks a bit weird, but it's kind of like an awkward angle, so I didn't know what to do there. We also added on the chimney, of course. You can add a chimney, a tower, just something like tall. It just kind of breaks it up a little bit, makes it look a bit different. I think it's looking fairly nice. And now we're going to move on to our final step, which is, of course, terraining and adding a little bit of extra detail around. I think we might try and link this path up here somehow, or maybe up this way. Let's give it one last time lapse to finish this build off. So we started off by adding some stuff underneath the overhang there, a couple of lights, some tools, etc. Just trying to use up the space with some interesting stuff. Then we linked up these paths by making a wall here, and then we also added some stairs down to the ground as well with another wall, and then just added some like detailing with some grass, coarse dirt, etc. We then moved on to up here where we added a tiny little farm in, mainly just for decoration, and also a lovely looking tree. And there you have it. This did not take too long whatsoever. I think this took about 2.5 hours or so to build. From ground level, it still looks really cool. We've linked up this path here very nicely, very smoothly all the way to the top. Here's what we added under here. We got some blast furnaces, some like wood piles, some tools, etc. The tree up here, we've added some little fences underneath it with some lanterns. We used a mix of leaves. I'm pretty sure there's some acacia leaves, some oak leaves, and some birch leaves in here. It just makes a really cool effect. Also, a big tip I've learned when making trees is just to have like bits of blocks sticking out like this and make it look quite rough. If you make it look too smooth, it just doesn't have the density in it. Obviously, this could be improved with this bit here being terrained as well, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately. But as you can see, this is a really cool looking build. I'm very happy with how this has turned out. Lots of cool features and lots of things that I've learned recently going into this build, and hopefully the tips I've given you can help you as well. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and comment and subscribe if you're new around here, and check out my other videos as well. I shall see you another time. Goodbye.